And we are live, I hope. Hello and welcome, non-American audience and or people who are taking a moment to escape their families to episode 22 of Developer Insights. I'm David.
And I'm Justin.
And together we are the leads on game development and design here at Codename.
And not only that, but we're also the founders of Codename.
We will be your hosts for this episode and for every episode.
Unless we're not.
So far, so good.
Today is our 22nd episode.
Yeah, I covered that in the welcome.
Oh, okay, well, fine.
But it is our first episode using OBS instead of XSplit.
So let us know if anything isn't working.
I'm sure it'll be fine. We just did a 24-hour uninterrupted stream using OBS last week. But if there is any issues, audio or otherwise, please let us know.
Assuming there are no issues, we're here to answer your development and design questions about Idle Champions. This is the part where I usually offer to answer questions on other topics, but we never really get any of those, so Idle Champions it is.
That's true. But if you don't ask any questions, you may have to suffer through Justin's one-man reenactment of last week's Extra Life stream.
I could, but that would take like 24 hours, so I don't think we have time for that right now.
I guess we'll just save that for next year. We can do a parallel stream.
The overlay still says episode 21.
What? And I just recreated that overlay. All right, I will fix that in a second.
I'm also pretty sure that November isn't spelled like that.
Oh, shoot. One moment. Let's finish this. I'll fix the overlay. Anyway, that said, this is still a good opportunity to remind everyone that the Extra Life charity packs are still available. The proceeds for those packs continue to go towards the Extra Life total, which in turn goes to BC Children's Hospital for any purchases made until the end of the month. So if you haven't yet picked up Star the Displacer Beast Kitten Familiar Pack yet in Idle Champions, grab it before December 1st, and the proceeds continue to go to charity. After that, the pack, I believe, is still going to be available, but it won't be counting towards Extra Life. Isn't that right, Justin?
Oh, that's right, Dave.
All right.
Anyway.
As always, we've pulled some questions from the previous show that we didn't get to, and so we're going to answer some of those as we wait for new questions to come in.
Sure, yeah. So normally we give updates on questions from last week's show, but last week's show was actually like 3 weeks ago, so I've forgotten all of those. So we're just going to take some of the questions from the previous show that we didn't answer and go through them first. We actually pulled a whole bunch here because there were a bunch of really good questions from last episode that we just didn't get to, and then we did the Extra Life show where we didn't really answer Idle Champions questions. So we wanted to get through some of these before we got to the new questions from this week. And hopefully all that talking has given Dave enough time to fix all of the things in the stream. Delay was
never wrong.
Good thing there's not like, a VOD or any sort of record of this. Anyway.
Sure there's an option I can use to remove it.
Welcome to Dev Insights. So here's a question from every time I say last week, I really just mean like 3 weeks ago or whenever it was that we did the last show. So here's a question from last week from Solitude GGs, who asked, are there any plans to make automation more accessible to new players who are wanting to avoid things like scripting? It takes a long time to match even the most basic scripts.
Yeah, so
with Modron automation.
Yeah, that's a good. Like the question is, how many more items can we or will we be able to add into Modron automation? Because I know we had quite a few nice to have. Like there's a wish list of things for that we haven't gotten to, but I'm not sure sort of where that lands in the priority queue for getting things in.
Yeah, I think if you guys have some specific sort of suggestions that you think Modron automation could do well, then by all means, send those in or post those in chat, and we'll try and catch them. I think we got the sort of the most basic parts of that in Modron automation. I think there is one thing we are trying to do or looking into doing is making it so players can get to Modron automation and get to that split the party adventure a little bit faster. So there's some things we're trying to help out with that, or that are in the works to try to help out with that, but nothing sort of that's being released yet.
Right. Okay. Next question here is from Canuck Monkey 13. Canuck Monkey 13 would like to know, I thought I was understanding the shaded section of Tiamat's health, but this week I did a solo tier 1 campaign. I didn't use any scrolls or anything else that would change my damage, but for the last few days I always have a shaded section no matter where I look before or after doing the daily mission. Would that have been a bug?
If you saw a shaded section before you did the daily mission, then yeah, that sounds like that would have been a bug. Like if you hadn't done any more damage that day than you did the previous day, and you didn't get the DPS increase from doing the daily adventure, then yeah, there shouldn't be a shaded section. But after you do the daily adventure, I would expect there to be a shaded section. That would be the difference in your damage from the first X hours of the day before you did that daily mission, and afterwards. So there would be a shaded section even with just one person after you did your daily adventure, as long as you didn't do it like immediately after the day ticked over. Because if you did it immediately after the day ticked over, and like it would be very, very small and probably wouldn't even be noticeable. But if you waited until the last minute, like if you reset your daily adventure like an hour before the day reset, then there would be 23 hours worth of that DPS difference that would show up in the shaded section.
I see in the chat, and I believe this is connected to this, Garwar saying it's bugged and that he submitted a ticket.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see here. Here's a question from RVK87 from last episode, who asked, when running trials with a speed potion, the transition between areas is also sped up. Is there a reason it's so slow without the speed potion if it can load fine without that delay?
So I guess there's two reasons for that transition between areas, and one of them is that it does in fact hide the delay, or it hides the loading of the background. But if the background's already loaded, it actually doesn't stop. So if a background does need to be loaded when the transition goes across, when it reaches the midway point where the whole screen is covered, at that point it will stop there and wait for the background to finish loading if the background hasn't finished loading at that point. If it has finished loading, or it was previously loaded, because it does keep a queue on either side, one on either side, then it just carries on. So the actual speed of it was simply just a visual choice. It was just an aesthetic choice that it go at that speed. I know it's one of those things where you play long enough with everything with the speed set to max, and then you come back and everything sort of feels snail pace. It's like that. I like to describe it as you're driving down the highway or the freeway and you get off onto a side road and it's like the limit's like, why is this limit so slow? Even though, of course, if you hadn't been doing that, your relative perception would have been different. So yeah, it was just a choice as to how much time that took. I don't know that there's a reason we want to speed that up too much, Justin. I don't know if you had thoughts on that.
My sort of thought is that if we sped it up by default, then the speed potion one would go even faster. And then we might start to run into issues where it can't load just fine without that delay. So yeah, I don't think there's any plans to make that go any faster by default.
No, but yeah, I mean, it's worth knowing that it actually does stop if it can't, if it doesn't load. So otherwise it just goes right through. Yeah.
If you're running on like a 28.8 baud modem or something like that, dialed up into your
and you're not already cached.
Yeah, and you haven't already grabbed the background.
Okay, next question here is from and as you probably prefer not to say, to JDog 2773.
How did you know?
Have the devs considered making this show 90 to 120 minutes?
I don't know. Have we? I think 60 minutes is a good time. It leaves everyone like happy and wanting more. It's like having relatives over, for Thanksgiving, right? It's like, if you have them over for like 8 or 10 hours, that's fine. If you have them over like overnight or a couple of days, it just starts to drag on. You're really like, please just go home.
So you're saying we don't do it that long because we just have to be careful to not overstay our welcome.
That's correct. We don't want to overstay our welcome in your guys' stream space.
Yeah,
the analogy is perfect.
Yeah, relative to questions, we certainly sometimes end up with more questions than we can answer by a small amount, and sometimes by a large amount. We wouldn't want to have to listen to one of Justin's one-man shows, so I think we're good stopping as long as there's a few questions left.
You know what, though? A one-man reenactment of the Extra Life stream would start off with the 60-minute founders Q&A that you and I did. So I could probably reimagine that.
All right, next question is from Menkhapira. We're going to go with that. I noticed that sometimes my party gets stuck on boss levels where the boss has been defeated, but a non-boss character is super OP. Like how the boss keeps getting stronger the longer it takes for you to kill. Is this supposed to happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is an interesting. We got that. I wonder if so. We talked about this in the office quite a bit in the last couple of weeks. I think it might have been because of this question. We just didn't get a chance to answer it, but I think someone saw it and noted it, and we talked about it in a production meeting. And the reason that this happens is there's some champions who have abilities that power up based on the number of enemies on the screen, or power up when they're tanking someone, or just power up in general in boss areas. And what happens is the boss and maybe all the other minions get defeated, and then there's only one monster left there, and all of those abilities go from E to the 5 or E to the 6 buffs down to nothing. And it's not that non-boss character is super OP. It's just that your party got a bunch weaker when there were less monsters on the screen. And we've been talking about sort of ways that we can maybe get around this. Do we want to, put something in where if there's a monster that's been alive for a long time, that it starts to power up? But it's a challenging thing to fix, because there are certain situations in the game where people make use of the fact that you could have a very quote unquote powerful monster staying alive for a long time on the screen. So we have to be very careful about sort of how we address this kind of thing. But it's not because, or as far as I know, it's not because of a bug of any sort. It's just because you had a bunch of abilities that were increased when there were more monsters on the screen that kind of go away when you're down to just one. And obviously in boss areas, more monsters don't continue to spawn. You just get the boss waves and the boss. So
yeah. But it's definitely something we need to do. We need to look into doing something about it, because it's certainly not the intention that you get stuck at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe it could be something that we only activate in boss areas, since this generally won't happen in other areas because you're going to be getting more monsters spawning. So
yeah. Okay. I did see a question or a comment following our previous question about the length of the show pop through the chat there. And the question was, how hard would it actually be to, drop an extra 10 minutes on the end of the stream? The comment was, this isn't network television. I think the caveat on that is sometimes there's a show immediately following us, and we don't always know what's coming up. But it seems like it could be possible from time to time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's another question from the last episode of our show, episode 21, from Semicardia, who asked, can we get event banners on the map screen? It seems illogical that I have to start an adventure to do a vote. Most illogical, Spock.
How do you feel? That definitely seems like something we should... let me back up for a second. So this is a part of question that we've been asked regarding a number of features that are not available on the map screen, and that we should be looking into getting those additional features available on the map screen, especially in a case like for voting in Idle Champions Presents. Having that option available without having to go in totally makes sense. And that's one that I don't think would have any caveats as opposed to as in regards to having data not loaded. That's the primary reason that we have some features missing on that screen, is certain things aren't available or aren't loaded up if you're not on an adventure.
I think it would probably be okay. I mean, you can claim the like rewards and stuff there, and it'd be fine because they would load up as soon as you loaded an adventure. So yeah, we
need to tag some of these things or some of the items that have been requested on that screen, so that we can look at having someone put those on.
Yeah.
It sounds like a job for one of our new devs.
It does sound like that.
I'm just going to tag that one yellow, so remember to do that.
Here's another question from Friday CWU from last episode, who says, in the settings on Steam, there's an option to, quote, always show formation circles, but checking this box doesn't cause the game to actually always show formation circles. Is this a bug, or am I missing the intended use?
So, to my knowledge, it should show the formation circles. If it's not, or if there's a case where it's not, that sounds like a bug. I don't know if you've observed that happening, or if anyone in the chat has observed that happening, but I'm pretty confident that should always show the circles. Yeah. If it's not, I think report that as a bug.
Mm-hmm.
Right, next question here is from Pendlar, and they're asking, could we have an indicator if a champion in another party is actually in the formation?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a good idea. I don't know if we have that information when you're on a certain party. I assume we must, because we keep the other, we do. We have that information because we show that on the current party screen. So that seems like something we should be able to do.
All right.
Sort of indicating, and that would be indicating, because you could have a party or a champion that is leveled up in another party, but not actually in the formation anymore if you kind of swap them around. And in that case, it's not a huge, we don't necessarily need to show that warning of like, this might affect the damage and progress of your other party if you pull that one over into your formation. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last question from last week, which I tagged in here because I thought it was fairly cheeky, was from Friday CWU, and they asked, does CNE Games need a CPA? And would said CPA get free in-game loot? Asking for a friend.
I mean, I think most of our employees do get free in-game loot, so
certainly welcome to help themselves, especially those with access to the admin panel.
Yeah.
Actually, I think people get stuff whether they want it or not if you're on the Steam list.
We do, yeah. Our accounts get flagged and we just get all the DLC, which is kind of annoying for me because I like to try and play kind of a more DLC-free type game, and they just keep on throwing familiars at me. So I'm like, all right, fine.
Okay, let's get into the new questions.
Yeah, let's do that. So these are questions from this week's show.
Not last week's show.
Which is airing right now. We're looking at now, sir. We're just going to throw out old movie references and see how many people get them. We did the Star Trek 4 one earlier. Now we're doing the Spaceballs.
Oh, you're just giving it away.
Well, I'm just, I'm giving examples, and so people can kind of try and figure out. We'll see if people can spot them in chat.
Yeah, it's an old reference, but it checks out. First question from Doorbell Streams. What is the cap for enemy spawn speed buffs? Considering there are 3 champions that increase this, and Whittle can probably get to it herself, is there any way this cap can be adjusted so that spawn speed champs aren't redundant?
So there actually isn't technically a cap on that, or no, there's the cap would be when they spawn in a single frame, I guess. There's no like fixed cap in the actual code that says when you have this much, you can't get any more. But certainly if they get enough spawn speed to spawn from where they spawn off screen to the spawning line where they become damageable, then I suppose that would be a cap. So we discussed this a little bit when we were adding another speed champ, when we were adding Whittle and other champions that are coming up as well that may or may not have this kind of thing. And yes, if you use them all together, you will get more spawn speed than you could probably use, but you can get up to 3 different parties, and so you can run those in separate parties and hope that one day we implement some stuff in the offline progress that takes spawn speed into account, and then they won't be as redundant. Hopefully someday we will do that.
All right, these next 2 purple ones, Justin, I think something was talked about on the previous stream that we're not aware of here.
I am wondering about this. Yeah, so here's a question from SlayNM, who says, hey, are you planning to release a VR version of the game? I really want to watch someone play Spurt in VR. And AirBR 2001 asked, has Lauren pushed her Idle Champions in VR idea to the dev team? It was pretty good. So now I'm just going to look over at chat and go, Lauren, what have you been talking about?
This is the first I'm hearing of this. Other than the only VR idea that I'm familiar with was very early on. I feel like Eric made some joke about doing like a game where you're looking down, like it's all happening in like a little box and you can look down in it and see what's going on. But I feel like that was really uncharacteristic of Eric because he really isn't pro VR. But
yeah, we need to get Eric onto the stream sometime to talk about the future of VR and video games. Come to his TED Talk.
Yeah, well, fair enough. On the other hand, I'm very pro VR, as many people saw. So,
no, you need to do just like the Beat Saber stream you did on Extra Life. You need to do some like extended reality, kind of augmented reality, mixed reality VR, where like you get to be one of the champions, and it like detects when you like swing your arms and stuff, and does damage, and you can like buff by doing hand signals and stuff.
I think you do an augmented one where you've got the little tokens and the tokens represent the champions. You can place them in formation, and then it puts the little virtual character on the spot. You put the token down.
Oh yeah, you could totally do that.
Yeah,
that'd be really cool.
It'd be really cool.
All right, let's drop all development time on bug fixes and upcoming content.
Ooh.
We're going to start working on the augmented reality version of the game.
Yeah, I don't think that's a trade that players are going to want to make. Okay. Instead of doing that, let's move on to the next question.
/S.
Next question here is from Invoken. Yep, I think that's we're going to go with that. Vonken with an M in front.
Spend more time trying to pronounce the name than asking the question.
Yeah, this is why we have questions left over at the end. Can you already shed some light on an upcoming evergreen in Icewind Dale?
Yeah, so I think we've talked a couple of times that there will be an evergreen available in the Icewind Dale campaign, and I've mentioned a couple of times that it is someone that you have met in the campaign, and I believe that champion is I think we've done the tech for them, so I think they're coming up soonish. I don't have a specific date for you guys. But yeah, they're gonna be pretty cool. I'm not sure what I can say without spoiling it. Maybe ask me again in a couple of weeks. I'll see what marketing can let me say on this one. But they're from the Icewind Dale campaign, and you have seen them in the campaign. So speculate away as to who that will be. Let's see. I'm going to jump down one so we can get a question for David here. From That's you.
Oh.
It says so under your name. So here's a question from Tarangar, who sounds like they might be slightly related to Garawar. They got the Gar in the name. It said, are there any plans to fix problems with the speed of the game when it's opened but minimized? My game completes zones about 30% slower when it's not visible on a monitor.
That's a good question in terms of, I think we have an option in the settings for that. Don't we? Remind me if I'm wrong on this. I'm pretty sure there's a minimum or reduced frame rate in background, unless it just always does that when it's minimized.
I think it almost always, or there's an option to do that. I know, but it sounds here like the game is actually just running.
Well, I think it's probably a frame.
Like it's a frame.
It could be that
issue.
if it's running at, I think we reduce it to like a couple of frames a second when it's minimized, and it's entirely possible with the frame rate of that low that certain events just aren't happening frequently enough. Even though they're time-based events in general, I think there's a low enough frame rate you could get to where things would just be a little bit lagged behind because they're sort of inside that window of if your average frame rate is 33 milliseconds, well, you're way over what you need. But if it's down to like half a second between frames, that it could be a problem.
So maybe this is a case where actually unticking that
unticking
lower frame rate
it,
while not in focus would actually fix it, though it means that it's going to be using a little bit more of your computer's resources.
Yeah, I'm not sure about what would the best way to handle that would be, because I bet it is based on the frame rate dropping when it's minimized.
Yeah. because the reason we do that is because when you've got the game minimized, we don't want to have it using all the same resources it's using when it's not minimized. But obviously that means that it's if we're processing less frames, we're going to be doing less actions, and if you have things that are happening faster than than one of these reduced frames, then that seems like that would cause an issue.
It's entirely possible that particular flag isn't, or that particular issue, the fact that it minimizes when it's or lowers frame rate when it's minimized isn't controlled by that tag, which I know someone's saying in the chat that it's not about the lower frame rate and background option, but it's related to that, because we do reduce the frame rate when it's minimized, just because we don't want it to be eating up GPU. And I know we get the reverse question as well, where it's like, why is it using up so much percentage use on my GPU? How do I handle that? And it's like, well, if you minimize it or you set that lower frame rate when in background, that actually solves that particular issue, if that's what you're worried about. So, we can put that on the list for someone to take a look at the frame rate there, maybe add an option for it. But the easiest solution would just be to leave it backgrounded but not minimized. Oh, that is not the correct color. All right, next question for you here, Justin, from OG17. Whittle's first and third specs exclude 3 and 5 characters, and her second spec only 1 from a cast of 90. Will this change to be more meaningful?
Yes, it will. We're probably going to adjust some of those numbers there. The intention was for it to be more meaningful, and we just flubbed on the balance there, and by we I mean I.
Okay.
So yeah, we will definitely be taking another pass on that, and maybe adjusting those numbers down a bit. So maybe it's like 11 plus or something like that, or 13 plus. I guess I have to go in the other direction.
I see another comment in the chat about the lower frame rate, and it says it should not lower the simulation rate, and the answer is no, it shouldn't. But when the frame rate is low enough, certain things that are waiting to happen at the beginning of the next frame will get delayed, and it's going to be few and far between things that actually have that affect them, but it's probably enough things in there at the low enough frame rate, like 2 or 3 frames per second, that it starts to become noticeable. Okay, you want to ask the next one there, Justin?
This is a question from Vovcas, or Vovcas, who asks, or says, requests, can you explain in detail how this background party simulation works and why you chose it compared to normal calculations or other ways? Why does it calculate something every 5 minutes for 3 minutes and freezes the game for a few seconds every time it starts, but after 12 offline hours, only 10 consecutive calculations is enough for 1,000 areas? It works slow, ignores most of the game mechanics, and gets a lot of other problems. But 3 parties is better than 1, even like this. Well, yes.
Right. Okay. So there's a lot. To dissect in there. The first thing, let's see. I'll go through it. Can you explain in detail? Maybe. Why you chose it compared to normal calculations. So the answer is actually the calculations that are happening there are pretty much the normal calculations, but there's a bunch of rules in place to skip through things, and a few things are left out, because it actually does end up running the game at a high speed with a headless mode. So it's not actually drawing anything, but it is still running through various it's still running basically through the whole party and running through the whole areas, and then it's jumping ahead and doing another one, and then jumping ahead and doing another one. The next piece on that is why it calculates something every 5 minutes for 3 minutes. So when you have the background parties, like once you're running once you have an active adventure and you've got a couple of background parties, actually every 10 minutes it will run a simulation for up to the next 10 minutes and attempt to get those. It takes those parties and it runs 10 minutes worth of simulation, 10 minutes worth of real-time simulation, and then it shows from when you from where you are in real time to that 10-minute window is up. It shows how far that party has progressed, and if you switch over to that party, it will then simulate whatever the difference in time is and put you there, and hopefully they line up. If you don't switch over to that party at the end of that 10 minutes, it actually saves that party as completed that 10-minute interval and then does another 10-minute interval. It shouldn't take 3 minutes, although I know that's one of those that's been a long-running issue, sort of how long that takes to do, and it shouldn't freeze the game for a few seconds every time that it starts. That's not something that we've observed, and it's not a common complaint that I've seen. So that's I'm not entirely sure. We'll be seeing a freeze on that. And just off the top of my head, I can't think of a lot of things that would cause that for like an absolute, like a pause, even if it was loading a bunch of things. So all I can think on that one is maybe if you're running on a lower spec system that could be an issue. But like I said, I haven't seen that. But like the freezing, I haven't specifically seen, and I don't think I've seen any reports of freezing at that point. Let's see. The next part of the question is: after 12 offline hours, only 10 seconds of calculation is enough for 1,000 areas. I mean, this I'd have to see the specifics of. In general, you can go quite a ways if, for example, there's a Modron reset in there, because once it completes one, it will propagate out and know that, say, hey, if you completed one in say, an hour worth of live time and you're set to reset, it will then say, well, you had 8 hours left, so you've got 7 more resets and just include those with the same returns, a slight adjusted for an increase in favor. So that calculation, then the remainder of it can be quick. But I mean, the specifics of that would have to be, I'd have to see the specifics of that to know exactly why that would be quite that quick for 1,000 areas. It says it works very slow, ignores most of the game mechanics. Yeah, and as I mentioned before, it doesn't ignore most of the game mechanics. It actually is running a simulation of the actual, what's actually playing back in the background. But there's some individual mechanics that are ignored, and I don't have a list off the top of my head. And I know that was one of there were a lot of issues with the motor, and there continue to be some. We're actually we're in the process of getting the bug reporting system cleaned up in a way that we can see in more detail what reports are still coming in and what have been taken care of, because we did have Mark working on that for about 8 weeks solid, and he did get quite a few fixes in for that, including like the instant champion recall and a lot more accuracy in the amount of progress and offline gold you get, as well as increased accuracy on how many resets happened, and that whole display was expanded to sort of make it more clear what was happening and what did happen while you were offline. But obviously that system still needs additional work, but we're going to have to get more specific reports in and find sort of where we're at with that. Anyway, there's a lot there. Hopefully I answered some of it and didn't create too much additional confusion. I'm sure in the chat's like, it still doesn't work. I'm going to look over and see that now. Yes. No. All right, carry on. Next question. The next question here for you, Justin, is from Garwar. The question is, going forward, do you plan on just doing one evergreen per campaign, or will we see 2 like there are in Tomb Annihilation?
Yeah, so great question. Oh, hey, I get to speak. I think some campaigns will probably have 1 and some will have 2. I know there's at least one other campaign that we're planning 2 for, and some other ones that we only currently have plans for 1. We have the general plan is to put in all the adventures and then do 3 variants for each. So it's possible that any of those variants could end up having an evergreen attached to it at some point, or not at some point, but when it's released. We generally won't go back and retroactively attach an evergreen to a variant. So we could still have a second evergreen in like Waterdeep or in Descent into Avernus. I just don't know if that's currently planned. But yeah, so it'll vary from campaign to campaign is the answer.
Okay. Next question from HFB Pereira. Yeah. Is it normal to receive different challenges for the same patron on different platforms? I mean, I received different challenges for the same patron in Steam and Epic, not the one with different champions, but a completely different one, like open a patron chest in Steam and destroy 150 distractions in Epic.
So yeah, you shouldn't. I don't think so, at least. I don't think we randomize based on platform. I think we just randomize based on the start of the week, essentially, or the week number. So you should see the similar ones. If you're not, that's kind of weird. For the same patron, you should see the same challenges between accounts, except for whatever champions you own. So if you're not, that's a bug.
Yeah, okay. That's what Gar is saying in the chat, that the variant should only be due to what champions you have.
Capital should.
Okay.
That's always the case with these answers. This is how it should work. Let's see here. Here's another question. Here's a question from JFC Fuller, who asks, hi guys, with 5 years of data and experience, is Idle Champions V2 planned or being worked on already?
So that would be like Crusaders V3? Is that the...
Or something else, V1, who knows?
Yeah, so we're going to continue to work on, someone's pasting something in here. Starting a giveaway now. Code is, November.
Wait, is that actually the code?
Okay.
So yes, in chat right now, or well, maybe right now by the time I say this. Yes, right now by the time I say this. You can enter for a chance to win 42 chests. You get to pick the type from like gold chests, Modron component chests, a champion chest, supply chests, anything except for Glory of Bahamut chests. And you have to type in November. Note the misspelling, it's intentional, November 21. And that is a callback to Dave spelling November wrong. So make sure you misspell it. November. Copy and paste it.
Okay.
All right.
Where
continue with your answer. 5 years of data experience is Idle Champions V2 planned or being worked on already? We can just very quickly say we can't answer that question.
Yes, I guess that the answer is if it was, we wouldn't answer it. If it isn't, the answer is we are continuing to work on Idle Champions and develop content and characters for that for as long as people are playing it.
Exactly.
Which we were going to do anyway, even if there was another one being developed. But yeah.
Yes. The answer is we will never, not never, but we have no plans to stop working on Idle Champions version 1.
Yeah. Okay. Next question here is from Kings and Vagabonds. And they would like to know, all of them.
All of them. Every king and every vagabond.
With the current meta, are there plans to elevate rarely used champions to have more relevance? Or mechanics that end up not quite planned, or mechanics that have not quite panned out? Mm-hmm. For example,
this is a good question. We definitely get this question fairly often, and the answer prior to now was yes, we would love to, but we just don't have time. But the answer now is yes, we would love to, and we may very well have time soon. So we do have, as we've mentioned a couple times in the last few episodes, we've hired a new designer. Who is working on new champions right now and bringing things up to or getting up to speed on sort of the champion design and how all that stuff works. We hope to be able to start looking back at some of the lesser used champions and updating them to have cool new abilities or buffing just their straight numbers. It sort of depends on the champion. Some of them we'll look at and be like, no, this kit is actually really cool. It's just not quite as powerful as we wanted, and so we can bump up the numbers in that case. And there are other ones where like this kit actually, and when I say kit, I mean the combination of their abilities and attacks and synergies. And so we can look at those and be like, maybe we need to make some more major changes. So we're going to start to do that. I'm going to start to assign that to the new designer pretty soon, because we're getting fairly far ahead on the champion design. I think we're designing champions out through close to second quarter of next year already, maybe even into summer. So lots of fun stuff coming. And so we will start to do those champion rebalances that we've been promising for so long.
I hear you. I hear your words.
Believe me, we will.
I see your lips are moving.
No, we're going to do it this time.
Okay, next question here is from Honda Hero 21. And Honda Hero asks, when I'm offline for hours, I'll get a couple hundred levels, but not many gems. How can that be? I've had to have done many boss levels.
Yeah, I mean, you should get exactly as many gems offline as you would have online for the number of areas you completed. I know at one point, and I don't think this is an issue anymore, but at one point the offline progress bar just wasn't showing the number of gens properly. But when we went and looked in players' actual play history, like we found entries for each of the gems and could account for all the bosses. So if that kind of stuff is still happening, if it's saying like you progressed 100 areas but you only got like 8 gems, let us know and we can take a look and see why that's still not updating properly. But as far as I know, you should be getting all the gems for the bosses you defeat when you're offline.
Yeah, and you can check that in the play history just to confirm. It's called in the journal. It'll show that those are there, and that should confirm that you're getting them, even though it's not showing correctly. And there have been, we had, like Justin said, we've had some aggregation issues in the past where that's just not shown the right number.
Yeah. Next question here is from, we're just basically going through all the questions this week. A question from Henry Lonewind, who asks, is there any reason that the level swipe black screen is painted with little boxes instead of being one big box that is moved across the screen? I have a question. How does he know that?
Also, it's not. It's one big box. I'm not sure. I'd have to see a picture of what he's seeing, but the level swipe is one big box. The areas are often chopped into little boxes, but the swipe bit is one box, and it's yeah. I have to see a screenshot of what he's seeing, but it should just be one box. To my knowledge, it's just one box. Okay.
Okay. Next question here from Doorbell Streams, and I got to this first because I get to ask you instead of you asking me.
I see. You want to turn this one up.
It says, "Are you guys done with your fixing the broken stuff period? Because it'd be nice to see a lot more fixes to things, especially background/offline parties."
Yeah, for sure. So we had Mark working on it for a solid 8 weeks, and Mark is actually not. He's assigned to another project. So we brought him over from that project to work on this for 8 weeks. And we did get quite a few things fixed, and we want to evaluate where we're at with that. One of the nice things is that we did hire another developer, and we have another developer who was 100% focused, or well, I guess maybe not 100% focused in the last little bit, but the priority for him was working on the localization, and the localization is approaching that level where we're going to be getting that out too. And so both of those developers actually have their primary their mandate has been bugs, and so they are basically 100% working on bugs right now. And so that is our hope with that, is that it will pull that list down and down and down until we're completely on top of that. But as far as the more complicated issues that were in the Modron and the offline progress section, we do need to get the offline page, or not the offline, the bug tracking page updated and cleaned up so that it's just the active issues, and then watch for what's still being reported there, because there was a lot of work done, and now we sort of want to let the dust settle and figure out what still needs to be done.
Cool.
Next question, also from Doorbell Streams. Can we have separate inventories or collections specifically for skins and feats? With 90 champions and counting to look through, checking them all manually is way too big a job.
Yeah, so this is one of my sort of pet things that I mention every few streams. I really want to, at some point in the future, once we get all the bugs fixed, go through and update the collections screen, which is currently only in. Is it only in the I would say normal UI, the non-gamepad UI? I don't think collections is in the gamepad UI.
No, it's just the Steam UI.
So the sort of normal UI, I want to update that to show more stuff. So to have like a page for all the skins, and a page for all the feats, and a page for all the adventures, and just to have a whole bunch of really cool progress bars that you can see your progress through sort of every part of the game. And so yeah, that is something that I want to do in the future. We don't have an ETA on it. It's unfortunately, it's one of those things that it's hard to find dev time for, because it's almost entirely cosmetic and doesn't really add anything like mechanically to the game to do. So it's hard to justify that when we could, add a bunch of new evergreen champions, or add a new system like Trials of Mount Tiamat or something like that. So hopefully one day we will get to the point where we can do that. But I just don't know when it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that sometimes we get opportunities for that is, especially when we're ramping up a new developer, or we've brought on a co-op or something like that. Starting with a screen like that can often be a good introduction. That isn't, and when someone starts working on the systems, they're not ready to do those more heavy lifting stuff that you were mentioning. So. So sometimes we get opportunities like that to add in some of those more cosmetic, more display type stuff. But.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next question here is from Lord Blackblood. And they ask, I maxed out a piece of gear with an ultimate cooldown before getting a common variant. Now that variant is unattainable for me. I feel punished for getting gold chest plus shiny and using so many contracts. Would it be possible in the future to fix it somehow? By auto-completing if you hit the max, or getting that one last cosmetic piece just to complete the set?
Yeah, I think this is actually kind of related to the last question, because if we did sort of do that update to the collection screen and we had like a progress bar for, say, all of the gear that you could possibly collect, or all the different rarities of gear that you could collect, we would 100% want to make sure that you couldn't be left with a progress bar you couldn't fill. So we would definitely at that point put something in so you would either automatically get credit for that piece if you capped it out, or that piece would just try and drop regardless of the caps from ultimate cooldown loot. Ideally, in some world, we actually just get rid of ultimate cooldown loot and replace it with something else, but that's a much bigger design task. Yeah.
Cool. If you want to read the next one there, I highlighted this one.
Sure.
It's not actually a question, but I saw they were enjoying the game, and then I saw after highlighting this, I noticed they actually subbed to the channel. So thanks for your sub, and Justin.
Yeah, this is a comment from Time for Sleep, who says, I don't have any questions, but just want to thank your team for this amazing game. Been playing for a week now, and I'm already in love. I'm an avid D&D player. It's a DVD player. I'm a Blu-ray player. This is an avid D&D player, and this is such a great breath of fresh air in the idle RPG gaming space. So thank you so much, Time for Sleep. That's it feels so good to read those kind of comments. And we'll pass that on to the team as well. Make sure everyone here sees that. Let's see, next question. These next two questions I think were related to the earlier discussion we were having about the black screen. So I'm actually going to read them both off for you, and then you can respond. So OG17 says, could the chat window be moved on top of the area transition wipe like most of the other game windows are? It can be hard to use when it's repeatedly blacked out. And then Doorbell Streams asked similarly, can we have the black screen between areas go under the UI instead of over it, so that interactions with the UI aren't disrupted when you're using a lot of speed champions / potions and clearing an area every second or two?
Yeah, so first part, yes. Yeah, we could do that. I'll flag it. It's done. It's tagged anyway. So yeah, definitely we can have the chat be over top. That's no problem. I'd probably do it so it's only if it's popped out, though otherwise it's going to look weird. So I'll tag that to have that done. The next part is, can we have the black screen areas go under the UI? So, I mean, again, this is a bit of an aesthetic question, mainly because we don't, I think that would actually look really weird, actually, to have the black screen just cover the background and have all the UI still up there.
I feel like it might have been something we tried initially when we were kind of experimenting with that swipe.
Yeah, but one thing to be aware of is that it doesn't interrupt most clicks. So you can actually click right through it. That was something that people asked for quite a while back, and something that we changed so that it didn't interrupt what you were doing, or it shouldn't. You should be able to continue to drag champions around and click on the UI. But yeah, having it not cover everything. Yeah, I think that looked quite weird. But,
sure.
Someone's adding another. While we're talking about Z order, can we have the upgrade bubbles go under the Switch champion UI? Yeah.
Oh.
Should make a note of that too.
While there's like a familiar on there and you're trying to switch the champion. Yeah, that does sound annoying.
Okay.
Let's see.
That's the next question here from Coffenia.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to view patron challenges before starting a run, since it makes sense starting a run, checking which monsters, etc., affect which run you'd like to do? And in the case you just ended a run and didn't think to check first. Well, I read that a little bit stilted in order, but I think you got the idea.
Yeah. So this is another one that we kind of talked about early in the stream about having more UI options available on the campaign map, and the patron dialogue is definitely one that we've heard a couple of times, and we got to look at how we would do that. I mean, in a super ideal world, I would also have some sort of indication, like if a patron challenge was like kill certain types of monsters. In a perfect world, I would have some sort of indication on the adventures or variants that had those types of monsters in them, so you could kind of quickly see like this one is eligible, this one will be helpful with a patron run of some sort. But that's probably a little bit down in the weeds in terms of what we can get done efficiently and effectively. But yeah, we can. We'll definitely look at having the patron dialogue be one of those that you can bring up from the main campaign map. Do you want to do the next question here? I've got some comments on it.
Sorry, 25?
Oh, yeah, that's the one.
Okay. JFC Fuller asks, your game has an international player base, but the recent changes to your stream schedule have made them less accessible to non-US players. Would you consider going back to earlier time slots?
Yeah, so this question got posted into our company Mattermost, into the streaming channel, and according to what I'm reading here, most shows are still in the same slots they've always been in. So I don't know if maybe this is like a daylight saving time issue or something, where everything kind of shifted an hour depending on where you are in the world. And if it is, then I'm right there with you. Daylight saving is horrible and I hate it. They also said that there might be more content appearing earlier in the day soon, TM. So I think we've maybe got some other shows or something in development. I don't know specifics of that. But yes, I think we, as far as we know, we haven't changed when any of the shows are. Our show has been at 2 p.m. Pacific for as long as we've been running it. So yeah, just wanted to comment on that question.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I bet the daylight savings is part of it, or saving. There's no S.
There's no S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next question here is from Super Checkson2. I'm using Ishii with Whittle, and Whittle doesn't seem to pick up Ishii's attack speed and spread it. For example, Ishii's 3-second attack speed right now for me, but Whittle's only speeding up the other champions at 4 seconds. Am I missing something, or is this working as intended? Does Whittle have a max? I've seen her spread a 3.5 second attack before.
Yeah, so this is a great question, and I bet a bunch of people in chat will be able to answer this as well, or maybe already did when it was asked. But Ishii's attack speed is special. Ishii will attack 0.5 seconds or 0.25 seconds faster than the fastest attacker in the formation. But this does not stack with other things that increase attack speed. So if we let it stack with Whittle, what we would see is Whittle would spread Ishii's attack speed to all the other champions, and then since Ishii always attacks faster than the next fastest champion, she would attack faster, and then Whittle would spread that faster attack speed to all the champions, and since Ishii always attacks faster than the next fastest attacker, she would attack faster, and so on and so forth, and then everyone would be attacking 0 seconds, and that would suck. For us, not for you. So yeah, Whittle does not use Ishii's updated attack speed. If Ishii is the only one in the formation, then Whittle will spread Ishii's base attack speed to everyone else around her, which would just be Ishii in that case. But yeah, Whittle can spread faster attack speeds to other champions. There's a couple of ways to get it a little bit faster than that, and I'm sure you can find people talking about those in our Discord or on Reddit or any of the other forums where people talk about that stuff. Yeah. Let's see. Here's a question from I'll just ask this one from Demon Gur here for you, Dave. Uh, are the blank screen transitions between areas necessary, or can the background just scroll into the next area?
So the answer in that is they're not necessary per se. It's more an aesthetic choice. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you had scrolling doesn't really make sense necessarily if you've got two areas that are like really, really different. Like for example, there's in the Strahd adventures, and some of the Strahd adventures, you're like fighting something off the edge of a roof in a destroyed tower, and if that scrolled to like a ballroom, it would look kind of weird. So I think it's it's just an aesthetic.
It's gonna like fade to black, sort of the cut between shots in a movie or television show, sort of to hide the fact that you can't just slide in the old thing. Certainly that would work for some areas, but
maybe we could do some other wipes. We could try and pull the old George Lucas and have like all sorts of different types of wipes. He's quite famous for his wipes in A New Hope.
Okay. How about this 31, Justin? You skipped over it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. From Spieler Bass here, who says, in this new collection screen, can you double the size of the champions? There is so much beautiful detail that it is hard to see in the character sheet / collection / game screen.
Yeah, so I highlighted this actually because we are working on some new features that will have much, much larger versions of the assets displayed. That's all I can say about that, but we are for that new feature we will be exporting all the characters at a larger size, and so we could certainly reuse those in the future. So certainly that's something that'll be an option.
Yeah, looks like we're running out of time here.
Yeah, I think answering another question is not an option.
It is not an option. We are completely out of time. That's all we have time for. If we didn't get to your question this week, since we're only a 60-minute show, not a 90 or 120-minute show, then don't worry. You'll have another opportunity. We will be live again at this same time next week. I believe that is actually a true fact, as opposed to last time when it was not a true fact. So we'll be back next week at this same time. Before we sign off, though, we'd like to thank our tireless mods, Mars and Martin, who copy your questions into our question stock and generally make things awesome for everyone. Thanks, guys.
And of course, thanks to all of you for hanging out, watching the stream, and enjoying the game. Without you here, no one here would get to do what we do.
That's true. We'd have to do something else.
All right. I think that's all we got. For our American viewers, happy Thanksgiving.
Is this where we test whether the hot mic still works in the outro screen?
This is where we test that. They were pretty upset after the extra live stream, so.
Okay, well, hopefully it still works. Or works again.